Okay, I'm going to try this again. My old phone keeps trying to force me to do a system update, and I'm using the old phone because there's more storage available on it. And anyway, it keeps trying to force me to do that, and whenever it comes up wanting to force me to do that, then it turns my camera off, and I end up then with only part of a video. But anyway, I just deleted everything I had, and I'm going to try this again. Okay, this is a story about my great grandfather on my mother's side of the family, my mother's father, basically. His name was Charlie, and during the First World War, he was a cook in the army, and he was stationed in England. And at least he was for a time. I don't know where else he might have been, but he was in England for a time. Anyway, he met my great grandmother, my mother's grandmother, in England. He actually met her in London, England, under Big Ben. Apparently, he was somewhere around Big Ben, and she happened to be there, and they crossed paths. And she ended up immigrating with him to Canada after the war, and they ran restaurants together for many years. They made a lot of money doing that. They did all right. But here's the thing. He was very much an eccentric, and as he got older, he got to be even more of an eccentric. He was kind of a weird old dude anyway. And I'm going to tell you some stories about him. I actually met him. I'm the only one of the grandchildren on that side of the family who actually met him, you know, because I'm the oldest of the bunch. And I actually did meet him in the 1970s. And how that came about, because he was sort of kind of estranged from our family, really. Of course, I was kind of estranged from that family, too. You know, it was all, yeah, a lot of weird stuff anyway. But anyway, how it came about though anyway was my dad through the week he was a mild mannered um, tool and die maker and industrial mechanic at a shoe factory. But on the weekends he became super television antenna erector. No, anyway, mild mannered news reporter. But when trouble strikes, anyway, I'm trying to do a spoof of Superman, but it's not really working very well. Anyway, my dad was a tool and die maker and an industrial mechanic in a shoe factory, but he had a side hustle. And what he did is on the weekends, he would put up television antennas. You know, the television towers we used to have? That's what he would do. He'd put those things up. And he had this side business doing that. And I used to go with him. When you do these jobs, quite often I go with him. And I'd help him in different ways. I'd go to the car and fetch things that he needed, or I would, you know, be inside pulling the wire through the wall or whatever it was, you know, whatever needed to be done. Anyway, we got called by my great grandfather there, the strange kind of going fella there, the eccentric Charlie. His name was Charlie. And we got called by him, well, my dad got called by him to come and do some work on his television tower. Or put one up or something. I can't remember now. I think we might have put a television tower up at his house. I'm not just sure now. But anyway, so we go there one Saturday. Now, my parents didn't want for him to know that I was related. And so what happened is I was supposedly I was given a false name. I was told that I was going to be called Paul when I was with my dad working there, that my name was Paul when I was there, because they wanted to do everything they could to lessen the chance of him finding out that I was related to him in any way, shape, or form. They were afraid he might start wanting to come around to our place to visit or whatever, and they didn't want him around. That's really what it was. Anyway, it ended up that we went out there to this old ramshackle farmhouse in Elphin. By that time, his wife had already passed on. At some time, not can't have been very long before that, but at some point, not too long before that, she had passed on. And so he was just living there by himself. He was a bachelor. Well, we go into this house, and the house is full of cats. That's the first thing. They're full of cats. The house is full of cats. And he told us that he had purchased those cats from a Polish circus. Those were Polish circus cats. That was the first thing. Apparently, they were performers in a Polish circus. He wore a gray beanie on his head, like what a Jewish person would wear. And I remember it was quite moth-eaten. It was in kind of rough shape anyway, but it was a gray beanie he wore on his head. He invited us in to the house. He told us we could stay for supper if we wanted to, that he'd just throw another cat into the pot. It would be no problem. I think he was joking, but I wouldn't want to swear to it, but I think he was. It was hard to tell with him because he was such an eccentric. I think he had kind of a wild sense of humor, which I have too, actually. Sometimes it gets me in trouble because people think I'm serious when I'm not, you know. I think he had that sense of humor, and he was also an eccentric, so it was hard to tell sometimes if he was serious or if he was joking, because it could just as easily be one or the other, you know. Anyway, it ended up that he invited us in. He wanted to show us his orange tree. He had an orange tree in his living room. He wanted to show it to us. What it was it was a potted plant. It was one of those old plastic or rubber type potted plants. And he had taken those plastic squeeze bottles you buy lemon juice in, and he had taken sandwich bag ties, and he had painted these plastic squeeze bottles with orange paint, because they'd normally be yellow because they were supposed to be lemons. He painted them orange, and he tied them onto the tree, onto this rubber tree with sandwich bag ties, and that was his orange tree. He was quite proud of that, and he wanted us to see it. Anyway, my dad and I got to work doing the job on his television tower, and while we were there, we noticed, because he had the old black and white television in the corner there, you know, that he was watching. But there was a box there, and my dad noticed it, and it said color television on the box. And my dad said to Charlie, "Do you have a color television in there?" And Charlie said, "Oh, yes, I do, but I don't really know how to set it up, how to hook it up or anything, you know, so it's just in the box." Well, my dad says, "I can hook that up for you if you'd like." And he says, "Oh, that'd be great if you could. That'd be just wonderful, you know." So I helped my dad get the new color television out of the box, and it was a portable television, so we set it on top of the old black and white one, and we disconnected the black and white one, and we connected the leading cable, it was called. That's what it was called, the flat 2-wire thing. It was called a leading cable. We connected the leading cable to the new color television and got it going for him, plugged it in and stuff, you know, got it running for him. Well, Charlie, he had gone upstairs while we were doing this. And we didn't really think much of it, you know. He had his gray moth-eaten beanie on when he went upstairs. Well, when he came back downstairs, he had a bright yellow beanie on his head. And he said, "You got to wear a colored beanie to watch colored television." So that was it. He had a bright yellow beanie on his head. Anyway, when it come time to pay my dad for the work he did there, Charlie didn't trust banks. He was from that generation, you know, that had been through the Depression, and the banks had taken everybody's money, and he just did not trust banks. And so he took a picture down off the wall in the living room, and he had knocked a hole in the laughing plaster wall, and he took out one of those leather men's shaving kits. If you ever saw one of those that looked like a big pencil case, basically, is what it looked like, but made out of leather and very, very thick with a zippered top. And he opened up that zippered top of this thing, and it was just bulging with money. And he pulled out the money to pay my dad for his services that day anyway. And then he put it back in the wall, put the picture back. And I remember my dad telling me, he said, "Whatever you do, don't tell anybody what you saw there." Because he said, if you went to school and told one of your friends, he might tell an older brother or something. because I was only at that time about 8 years old, 7, 8 years old. But he said, you tell somebody, and they'll tell their older brother or something, and he said, come in here and they'll rob the old guy. Maybe even kill him, you don't know. So he said, just keep your mouth shut about that. Anything you see around here, he said, keep your mouth shut about it. I can tell the story now because Charlie's long gone. He died, I think, around 1990. So he's long gone anyway, so I can tell the story. But anyway, he was in an old farmhouse in the village of Elphin. That was the name of the village, Elphin. And ramshackle old place anyway. But Charlie had all the fixtures and all the old cash registers from his restaurants and all the old fixtures from his restaurants. He had the old Coca-Cola signs, the enameled tin Coca-Cola signs, and all, which at that time was all junk. In the 70s, we just looked at that like it was junk, He had gumball machines. He had gumball machines in the shape of rockets, and stuff that apparently are worth a lot of money now. But again, in the 70s, it was junk. All the old cash registers that he had over the years were still there. Old ice boxes, the old oak ice boxes and stuff. He had sheds full of this stuff, and his garage was full of it, and that was all over his house and everything. The old enameled steel door pusher things, that would go across the door at an angle. When you'd push on it, like a push bar to open a door in a commercial business with, drink crush on it or whatever. He had all that stuff. Like I say, an auctioneer would love to get into that place these days. But I mean, back then it was all just regarded as junk, There was nothing really valuable about it in the 70s. Nobody wanted that stuff. But anyway, he had money hidden all over the property, it turns out. But when we were leaving, in fact, it's kind of funny, he was showing us through his sheds out back. And of course, as a kid, I was kind of nosy. And I opened up one of the old ice boxes. And the old oak ice box, it was full of money. There was stacks of bills in there, stacks that thick with elastics around them, piled up. The whole ice box was full of money. Anyway, my dad was right. It wouldn't have been good for me to tell anybody about that, and I never did. I'm talking about it now, but it doesn't matter now, but back then, no, it wouldn't have been good to talk about it. But anyway, the thing is, though, when we were leaving, we're standing in the driveway with Charlie, and his cats are all going around his legs and stuff, rubbing against him and everything, and wandering around the yard. And Charlie, he was telling us about them being Polish circus cats. And of course, we just kind of nodded, and we were trying to be polite, We didn't really believe it, but we were trying to be polite. Anyway, he started saying this word over and over again. And when he would say this word, he'd point down like that at his feet, and the cats all come, and they formed a circle. And they started going around in circles around Charlie. They were maybe about a foot away from him, away from his feet. And they just formed a circle, and they just went around and around there, And anyway, Charlie, he'd keep pointing down like this, and he'd go, Kichikaya, Kichikaya, like that. Of course, we thought it was just a nonsense word he had made up, We didn't know. But the cats actually did go around in a circle around Charlie as he was doing this. And anyway, that was kind of neat. But we laughed, never thought any more of it. We were back there a couple more times after that because there was more stuff needed to be done with the antenna. But I think there was a windstorm at one time when we got called back to deal with that because there had been some damage or whatever. And then there was another time there was some other issue that we came and fixed. But anyway, here's the thing, though. After my grandmother died, my mother's mother, we were over at one of my uncle's places, And one of my cousins, they were asking me about we got talking about Charlie for some reason. And I said, oh yeah, because they were talking about that they'd heard he was an eccentric. And I said, oh yes, he was. I said, I met him a few times, and yeah, he was an eccentric, And they were all like, you met him? Because they were all born, in like the late 80s, early 90s. They never knew Charlie. Anyway, I said, oh yeah, yeah, he was quite an eccentric. And they were like, well, tell us about him. So I was telling them the story anyway about the cats, the Polish circus cats, and the Kitchikaya. And one of my cousins got on the computer and Googled Kitchikaya. He just put it in how he thought it would be spelled based on how it sounded. He asked me how it was spelled. I said, well, I don't know. I only heard him say it. He didn't spell it for me, so I don't know. But anyway, he put it in the way he thought it would sound. And it came up that it is a Polish word, and it means more quickly. That's what it means, more quickly, Kitchikaya, and it's a Polish word. So, Charlie wasn't as crazy as he seemed, I guess. I can't recall if the cats moved more quickly when he was doing that, but I know they came and they made a circle, and they went around his legs. There was like 4 of them. Came running over, and they formed a circle, and they all went around his legs in a circle. And he was pointing, Kitchikaya, Kitchikaya, he'd say, and the cats would do this. Anyway, my dad came home from work one day, and he was laughing. And he started telling this story. He'd been at a Shell station to buy gas that day. It was called Garfield Leach's Shell. It was on Highway 7, just outside of Perth. It's gone now. There's a shopping mall where the Shell station was. That whole stretch of road looks nothing like it did back then. Back then it was all gas stations and greasy spoon restaurants and used car lots. But anyway, my dad had been in there to get gas, and Charlie was there. And Charlie was standing on the pump island, and he was very loudly praising Garfield Leach and Garfield Leach's gas. But not in a way that Garfield Leach would have liked, though, Because he's up there and he says, yeah, he said, I always buy my gas here at Garfield Leach's Shell station. Gar's gas is good gas. Gar puts water in his gas, makes your engine run nice and cool. That's what he said. Well, water in the gas would not be a good thing. But anyway, my dad was laughing anyway, saying that Charlie had been at the gas station. And anyway, giving Garfield Leach a little promotional plug, which we're pretty sure he wouldn't have wanted. But anyway, that was Charlie anyway. That's what he was like. But anyway, that's just some humorous stories about the old fella anyway. He's long gone now. And like I say, whoever bought that house, I'm sure, just with the money that was hidden in there alone, whoever bought that house after he passed on, if they renovated it, which they probably did because it was in bad shape, that house, they probably got the house for free, really, because there was so much money on that property hidden around. The house they probably got enough out of the walls to pay the mortgage off, or whatever, to pay for the house and the renovations too. It was just wild. But anyway, that's the story. That's my great grandfather on my mother's side of the family, my mother's father. I can't think of anything else at the moment. One thing is, when we went into his house, we went in through the back door into the kitchen, and he had his cupboards painted black, and they were painted, though they had yellow triangles and blue squares and red circles and things. It was quite a paint job he did, and he told us he did that himself, I remember that, and actually it was kind of impressive. He did a good job. It was far out, like it was different for that era, for sure. It wasn't, but it was, yeah, he did a good job anyway. I mean, it was unique, and yeah, it was kind of neat, really. But Anyway, that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed these stories. Rocky and I do need to go to bed because, well, as you can see, I need my beauty sleep. Really, I haven't had enough of it. That's how I come to look like this. And there's Rocky. He doesn't need his beauty sleep, but he does need to sleep because he's a cat, and that's what they do. Hey, you. It's nice to see you, my friend. Anyway. All right. Anyway, we'll talk to y'all later. Bye for now.